Hey, welcome back to the next installment in the nature tutorial series here. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how I made this scene, which has this sort of water cube in the middle that's sort of being suspended by these branches. It's actually a pretty simple shot. We're mostly going to be in Cinema 4D, and we're going to set the environment up there and kind of build our shot, all the lighting and the camera there. And then we'll just do the simulation of the water cube in Houdini, which is really easy. So even if you're a super beginner in Houdini, we're just gonna get in and out and then take that water cube back into Cinema 4D and keep going from there. So without further ado, let's get started in a new scene. So it's a pretty simple shot. The environment was very simple. All I'm gonna do here is make a disc for the floor, and let's make this bigger, something like, I don't know, something like that. Give it some more rotation segments. Okay, and then let's make the middle part a little dirt patch that it's going to be growing out of. So we want a tube and just kind of lower it like that. Again, let's give it some more rotation segments, something like that. And let me turn on my lines there so I can kind of see. And maybe I'll make this a little smaller, something like that. And then I'm just going to duplicate it and make it a little smaller so we kind of have this little gradual step here, something like that. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so, and then I'm going to make one more, and this is going to be the large outer wall, like that, to make sure it intersects with our ground there so we don't have a gap. And then we'll just move this up. And for now, we can turn this one off. Let's call this one outer wall, call this ground, call this one, or we can group these two, we'll call them stand, because that's the stand in the center. Okay, and then I need one more disk. I'll just duplicate this ground. I'm going to shrink it, move it up, and this is going to be our dirt patch here in the center. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delete that. I'm going to make a circle. This. Let's rotate it so that it's lying flat, like that. And then we will extrude it. 0. And let's give it just a start cap. And the cap, we want it to be a quadrangles like that. Or no, sorry, regular grid. There, because we're going to subdivide this later and put a texture on it and with some displacement, and so we want more even topology on there. It's going to be a lot harder if we just have these sort of radial lines to do that. So we'll call this one center ground. Cool. Okay, so and then just group them, call it ENV for environment. Okay, that's, oops, of course I should save this, right? So let's go here. Put it in tutorials, tutorial 9, and we'll call this. Okay, cool. So we have that. It's kind of our basic environment. We turn on the outer wall. That's basically it for the environment. So now, what I want to do is kind of block out where I want my water cube to be, and then start assembling the branches around it. So the way I did that was I just took a cube and shrunk it and make it something like up here. Cool. So that's basically going to be where my water is going to go. And then what I want to do is I want to have some branches kind of growing out of this dirt here and then coming up and then going around the cube and then going back up. Like the branches themselves are sort of suspending this water cube. So what I did was I went to Megascans and I downloaded one of those models they have. So let's see, it's going to be under my textures, Megascans. And it was called Tie Tree Branch. That's the one you want. It looks like this. Okay, so these are cool. I just use these branches. So I'm going to import the level of detail 0, 1, which is the highest resolution. Okay, and then all I did was I just kind of manually positioned these. So I'm going to scale it up. And let me show you how this works. So right now it's not adhering to the side or anything. And I want it to be, just kind of rotate them something like that so that it's in the dirt, in the ground, and then also near this cube. And I'm going to duplicate it, and let's turn it off. Let me show you how this works. So what I can do is use the brush tool to kind of brush these points into place around the cube so they look like they're hitting something solid. So if I hit MC on the keyboard, it gives me this brush tool, and it's set to smear. And you can just kind of move these points into place. So let's get this kind of out of there like that. And just kind of get it so that it's visually kind of lined up with the cube so that it looks like it's kind of wrapping around it. And if it intersects a little bit, it's okay. And basically, I just kind of did that a bunch. So let's do the next one. Let's rotate it. Maybe let's turn it like this. Oops. Shit. God, what am I doing? Ugh, I'm used to Houdini's controls now, so I'm using the wrong shortcut keys. Okay, so let's kind of move it like that. And let's, I don't know, maybe rotate it. Okay, and then again, MC on the keyboard, and we can move, just kind of gently move these into position. Get this middle ones out here. And you can adjust your brush radius by going over here and kind of making it smaller, so you can kind of give it more detail at a smaller level. I like to kind of keep it larger because too big. Something like this, and try not to distort it too much. You don't want to go like this, where you really have this big wide thing, because it's gonna be very noticeable once you put the texture on. It's gonna look really stretched out. So there's no real secret to this. I just did this a bunch of times until I got something I was happy with. So try to get these to connect to something down at the bottom, so that it doesn't feel like it's just by itself. So maybe have it kind of come around there. Just make sure you're rotating around it and kind of considering all the angles. Okay, so I won't make you watch me do the whole thing because it takes a little while, but here is kind of a version where I've skipped ahead and shown you what I've done. So I just have a bunch of these branches, and like I said, I just sort of manually positioned them with the brush tool so that it feels like it's wrapping around the cube without intersecting it, as if it's supporting it. Okay, so now that we have that, let's do the plant effect. So I had a bunch of plants and flowers kind of scattered around on the surface of the ground here, and they're all kind of moving around. So let's do that. So what I did was I used Forester, but you don't have to use plants. You can use whatever you want. You can put a model in there. You can use spheres, cubes, whatever you feel like doing. But for me, this was part of the nature series, so I was using flowers. So if I go to extensions, Forester expansion pack 2, let's just pick something that looks kind of cool. I don't know. How about this? And let's add materials to selected plants. So it's nice because it already brings in redshift materials for me. Okay, and let's pick another one. Let's do something a different shape. I don't know. Maybe these. And add materials. Okay, cool. So we've got 2 plants. They're right here in the middle. like that. And let's take this one and move it over there. Let's make these, let's kind of optimize these a little bit maybe, because there's a lot of geo in them. Well, for now, let's not. So what I want to do is I'm going to start by building this with a cloner, just so I can see what the motion of these is doing. And let me turn off the lines here so I can just see it. So I'll build this with a cloner, and then I'm going to import it to a matrix object. That's what we're going to end up using. So for now, let's just put this inside of a cloner, both of them. And let's change this to multi-instance, because it'll go a lot faster. And let's take the cloner, change the object mode to object. And the object we want to clone these onto is our ground here. So that would be this. So let's take this ground, drag it in. Okay, and let me get rid of this texture panel here. So you can see we've got, let me turn off the outer wall so I can zoom out a little more. We've got these scattered, and they're positioned in the wrong way. They're turned 90 degrees. So we need to go to the transform control and go minus 90. And now they're standing up straight. Okay, so let's change this to like 100 so I can see them a little more. All right, now the next thing I want to do is I want to randomize their scale. So let's go here and pick a random effector with my cloner selected. It'll automatically add it into the effectors list. See that there. And what I want to randomize is, let's turn off the Y position. Let's put these to the X and the Z to 10. And then the rotation, let's make sure we get the right axis. Yeah, I want to randomize, let's say 1080, so they're all kind of turned differently. And then let's give it like 6 and 10 here. So they're kind of not all straight up and down. Okay, and let's randomize the scale as well. Let's make sure the uniform scale, let's go 1, maybe 0.8. So we have some that are small, some that are really big. And then I also just want to reduce the overall size of these. So in the transform control, I think I can just go like 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, right? Yeah, so that will keep the scale relationship small and large with the randomization that I just added, but it'll just kind of globally scale everything down. So let's go like 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. Yeah, I want really small. And I'm going to add a lot more of these here in a bit, but for now I just kind of want to see. It helps me to have a visual guide of how big the flowers are and stuff. Because when you use the matrix object, you can only see cubes until you actually hit render. So for now, I just kind of like to see this. So let's add, let's do more objects. Let's do 500. Okay, save it. Okay, next I want to do is I want to animate these. So let's click our cloner again and go to the plane effector. And the parameter I want to animate is the scale. And again, uniform scale. And we're going to change this to -1, which is going to scale them all down to 0 to where you can't see them. They're still there. They're just scaled down to 0. Now, I don't want them to scale everything down because then I can't see anything. What I want to do is only scale it down in certain areas. So we're going to go to the Fields tab, and we're going to go to a shader field. And the shader that we want to use is noise. And we'll click on this, and let's change this to something like turbulence. Okay, and we'll decrease the scale to like, I don't know, let's say 500, maybe 1,000. Okay, so you can see basically wherever this color is black, these are going to get really small, or these are going to be not affected by this effector at all. And wherever everything is white, it's going to be affected by the effector. So let's animate this. So if I change the animation speed to something like 5, let's just see what that does. Is it doing anything? Let's try 50. Interesting. Why is it? Okay, so for some reason, the animation of the noise is not displaying in my viewport here, but when I go to my plane effector and fields. The next step would have been to add a delay effector on top of this to kind of smooth everything out. And I noticed that when I put it on there, suddenly I get animation. So for whatever reason, it is animating, it's just not showing up until I put this delay effector. And I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm in this new version of C4D, there could be a bug or something, which might be totally possible. So in my shader field, let's change this back to like 1. I don't need it to be fast, something like that. And then in my plane effector, under the fields for delay, let's make sure this is on smooth, and let's put it like 30, and let's just see what that does. So you can kind of see everything moving up and down. I think I want them to kind of twist as they move up and down too. So in the plane effector under parameters, let's go rotation and put this to like 30. So you can kind of see them as they scale down and scale up, they rotate around a bit. Let's go like 80. So you see this one here, it's kind of rotating. So okay, cool, that's great, but we want way more plants than that. And I don't want any in the middle here, so I'll fix that in a moment. But for now, what I want to do is turn this cloner off, and that was just to visually set this up. So now let's come over here and let's put down a, where is it? Matrix scatter. And it's the same thing as the cloner, it's just way faster, basically. It uses instances. So under object, same thing we're going to do, change it to object mode, and the object we want to scatter across is the ground. So you can see these little cubes. Let's put like 20,000. Okay, so we've got 20,000 cubes. And again, we need to hit -90 here, just like we did on our cloner, because they're going to be facing the wrong direction. You can't really tell because they're cubes, but they are. And then we want to click on this redshift tag on the matrix object, change it from optimized spheres to custom objects, and then let's drag in our 2 plants that we have and make sure we change the distribution to random. Okay, so we've got that. And then the last thing is click on the matrix again, go to effectors, and drag in our random effector and our plane effector. So that should, there, now you can see everything moving. And in the plane effector, if we go to our fields, where is it? Fields, have the shader of field affect the color, you can kind of see how the noise is moving a little better. So wherever the white is happening, it's not having any effect, or wherever it's white, it's having a full effect, and wherever it's black, it's not having the effect. So that might be a little fast now that I'm seeing all these clones here. So let's go back to our noise and change the animation speed to like 0.5, maybe 0.1. .001, let's try that. Maybe let's increase the scale of this noise a bit. Let's try plane fields delay. What's that do? Let's try making this smooth way more. So here it is without the smooth. You can see everything just kind of has this jerky, jittery motion. We don't want that. We want it to be more, a little more smooth like that. Okay. Let's try putting this to like overlay, see what that does. Sometimes it helps to just change the blend modes a bit, just see what they do. Let's try changing the noise to like wavy turbulence. What's that do? That seems better. Yeah, I like that better than regular turbulence. Sometimes just the noise patterns have weird animations. This seems a lot smoother, which is what I want. It was going too fast before. Cool. Great. Okay, so now we have that. Let's take a look at it in the viewport and see what this looks like. So let's throw down like a sun object here just to get some lighting, and then I will fire up the viewport here. Okay, so these plants are obviously way too big because remember in my cloner I scaled everything down here to 0.2, but I forgot to do that in my matrix object. So let's remove these two things. Let's get rid of this cloner. We don't need it anymore. So what I'll do is on the redshift tag, the scale multiplier, let's put this to 0.2. And there we go. So now we have everything scaled down, and I might even want it to be smaller. Let's go like 0.1. How about 0.15? And I need a shitload more of these. So right now they're spaced too far apart. I don't want that. Let's go like object. Let's do 50,000. So the great thing about the matrix object is that you're able to crank this up to 50,000 or 200,000 or whatever you need. Let's go 100,000. And it responds pretty quickly. See, I still have nice viewport performance because it's just representing everything as cubes here, but at render time it switches it out with what you actually want it to be. Okay, so I wouldn't want these all to be orange. They're kind of like an orangish yellow, and we can change the colors of those later, but for now I just kind of wanted to get the motion down. And let's make these even smaller. They're still, just go 0.1. So I like to make things pretty small and have lots of them. Let's do 150,000. 200,000. 250,000. That's 300,000. Just trying to fill in these gaps here. And you know, something else I might do, let's turn off this matrix object actually. Let's kind of come over here, turn off this for now. Is see how these plants might not be the best choices because they're just kind of these tight, solid shapes. So what I could do is take this one here and come into its settings and the stems. Let's change this down. Let's maybe make the radius of the stems a little larger and the stem diverge less so they're all kind of standing. So basically just try to make this a little wider so it covers a little more area. And I'll do the same thing with this one here. So let's go to stems. Let's make the stem patch radius more. Change the divergence until it's something like that. Stem patch radiance, where is it at? There. I don't know, let's just see if that has an effect. Might make it a little better. We'll see. Fire up the redshift viewer. Yeah, seems a little better. So there's a little more coverage, seems a little more natural and mixed. So in my random effector, I might want to, let's just change this to 1. Like that. And then the plane effector, maybe in the noise. So right now I don't really see a huge difference. So you can see over here is where there's not going to be any effect, and here the white part is where they're going to scale down. But I can make that effect more dramatic by increasing the contrast here. So you can see these black parts right here, they're at the normal scale, and then the white parts like right here, they're scaling down to 0. So let's kind of move the camera down and across so we can kind of see what that looks like. It looks okay. It's just something you kind of need to play around with, and you can adjust the low clip, the high clip, and really just pinch these colors together so there's less gray area and more just white and black. Something like that. That's fine for now. I'm just kind of showing you the basis of how to build this effect. You can play around with these numbers to get something that looks like a nice noise pattern to you. So I kind of want some blank areas like this where you're going to see the floor, and I kind of want some fully filled in areas there. And something else that will probably help is changing the colors of these so they don't look all like they're the same color. You could add in, instead of 2 plants, you could have 10 or whatever you want. Okay, so that's basically that. Let's get the lighting set up here. And then we'll do our camera, and then we'll move into Houdini and do the water simulation. So let's see, let's turn on this outer wall, something like that. Fire up this viewer. And then let's I like to use this mode, and yeah, something. I like to use the sunlight when I'm doing like nature scenes because it looks nice, and that's typically how nature is lit when you're outside, is with the sun, not in a studio. So something. Let's try to get that, and then maybe we can increase the size of the sun. Doing that will make this shadow softer. So you see that? If I put this to 1, look at the shadow is really hard. But if I make the sun larger, like 5, it softens that shadow just a bit. It feels a little more natural. Okay, so cool. That's basically my lighting. This isn't really a tutorial too much about like texturing. I didn't do anything special with it anyway. I just used the grayscale gorilla textures for like concrete, and then I used the textures that came with these tie branches. So we can just set those up really quick. It's nothing special. So grayscale gorilla. Let's do the plus library. Come on. Gonna load it for a sec, and I think I just used like the everyday materials. Concrete. I think I did these like paver 01. So let's bring that in. I think my screen recording is killing my performance here. Come on. Okay, so yeah, I've got that. I think I just put it on the outer wall there, and then I believe I just used like some other. Let's just try this concrete here. I just used that for the ground, the stand. Yeah, so let's see what that looks like. Let's turn off this matrix object so we get a little better viewport performance. So they're kind of mapped improperly, and none of these objects are going to be moving. Only the camera is going to be moving. So if I set these to like a cubic projection, that's going to be totally fine. So let's start with the outer wall, cubic, and then right here we can just adjust these. Let's make it 200 by 200 to make it larger. So you can see I want to kind of see these tiles a bit. Let's go like 250 by 250. Make them just a little bigger. Cool. And then this ground. Let's get up close here. See this. So same thing, I can set this one to be cubic, and that's probably too small, so let's go 200 by 200. Oh, maybe it's too big. 50 by 50. I don't know, just kind of play around with it till it looks right. And let's give this a little bit of a bevel here so that it looks more realistic. So these tubes that we have, let's do a fillet. And let's make the radius be 0.2, maybe 0.1, like that. So it catches a little more light and looks a little more natural that way. Okay, and then this ground texture here is way too large. You can see that it's becoming kind of pixelated. So let's take the ground and make this one cubic also. We're not going to see too much of it. It's going to be covered by plants anyway, but let's just pull that out. Cool. And then let's turn back on our matrix here. So that's pretty much it there. Now let's build the camera move. So the camera, I'm going to show you a little trick I do. You've probably seen this in other tutorials. It's nothing special that I've created, but it's a great way to animate cameras. So let's first go into the project settings, change this to 24 frames per second because we're going to start to animate here. And I want this to be maybe 120 frames so we get 5 seconds long. Let's put down a camera and let's put down a circle. We're just going to build ourselves a little rig, and God, this outer wall kills me. I keep forgetting about it. Let's turn that off for now. So the circle, we want to turn it so that it's like this. And then let's put down a null, and we're going to call this target. And I want that to be right at the center of this cube, like that. Okay, and then we're going to take the camera, right click, animation tags. We're going to go to align to spline, and the spline we want to align to is the circle. So now you can see the camera has snapped to the circle, and if I animate this position, you can animate it around the circle. But I also want the camera, see how it's looking the wrong way? We want it to look at the center, the target that I just added. So let's put down an animation tag, a target, and the target object is going to be this. There. So now when I animate this thing, it's always looking at the center. So it's a great way to have your camera rotate around. But the cool thing is, now that I have this circle, I can also animate the radius of it. So it's moving in and out as well as moving around. So what I want to do is start, let's take this circle and this target and let's move them up so that this is in the center. And let's go and see like that so I can see a little better. And I want to first animate the radius of this. So let's have it go from here to like, let's go all the way to the end like this. And let's see what that looks like. Way too slow. So let's go window F curve. And I want to have it like fire out quickly. So let's take this one, change the curve so that it's like that, and then drag this like that one so that it, see how it does that? Just shoots out and then slows down. Maybe that's shooting out too fast. Maybe we have it, give it just a little bit of a ramp up. So it starts a little slow and then gets faster. That feels a little better. Okay, cool. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to animate its position on the spline. So if we want to start here, and then let's have it go like that, somewhere there. And then bring this back over and try and give it the same, or a very similar curve, something like that. So it should shoot out slowly and rotate around like that. That's pretty much all I did. And if you, the cool thing about this setup is that if you want it to look somewhere different, you can take this target and you can animate it, and you can animate this down or up or whatever, and it'll, you can change where it's looking at. So it's using a rig like this is really cool for something like this, but it's also great for if you do like product renders and you have like a device in the middle that you're, you know, like a cell phone or a speaker or something that you're trying to show off. A simple rig like this can really help you animate that way. Okay, so that is pretty much it for the Cinema 4D part for now. So we're gonna now jump into Houdini, and we're gonna do a quick little simple cube water simulation thing, and then we're gonna bring it back in here and finish up. Okay, so here we are in Houdini. This is going to be very simple. So even if you're a super beginner with Houdini, you shouldn't really need to know a whole lot. We're not going to be really using code or anything. We're just going to do something really simple and really quick, and then we're going to just export it and bring it back into Cinema 4D. Okay, so the first thing I want is a sphere. So if I just type sphere, so hit tab, type sphere. Cool. And then what I want to do from there is, while this is highlighted, come up to this top bar and click particle fluids and click emit particle fluid. And it's going to say select a fluid object to emit into, if any. We don't have any, so we're just going to hit enter. Okay, it's going to calculate for a sec, and then it's going to set up a bunch of stuff for us. So I have my sphere. Now it's brought in this DOPNet particle fluid interior for me. So what I want to do is, so if we just go into this DOPNet here, you can see that we're using the sphere that I've built as the emitter. So if I just hit play now we have liquid dropping down, and we have this giant cube. So what I want to do is I want to make this cube smaller, and I want to make it so that the water collides with the sides, because we're going to bring that, we want to make it look like it's staying within the cube that we've set up in Cinema 4D. So if I come to the flip solver here and highlight it and go over to volume motion, you can see that I have this box size here. Let's change this something to like 6. Make it a little smaller. We don't want this to be gigantic. Okay, and then the next thing I want to do is highlight the flip fluid object and hit closed boundaries. That'll make it collide with this. So let's just see that. You can see it's just colliding with the sides. Great, it's working as expected. Pretty cool. And let's hit D on the keyboard, go to background, and change this to dark. I find that, and we can turn off this grid here, I find that it's easier for me to see. And if I go hide other objects there. Cool. Great. Okay, that's working as expected. The next thing I want to do is give this some initial velocity. So right now, it's just falling down. We have gravity here. It's just falling straight down. I want this to shoot out of the sphere wildly. So what I'll do, we have to set that up on our emitter. So we click on this. Come over here, and let's put down a point VOP. Okay, and let's highlight this. And maybe on the sphere, I will change this to polygon and increase the frequency so that I have a lot more points, something like that. Cool. Okay, so let's dive in here, and let's put down a turbulent noise and take the position and put that into the position. And then let's put this, for now, let's just put this into color so we can see what that looks like. So it's basically like adding a noise, and we want a 3D noise, and we want zero-centered purlin, I think. And we can adjust the amplitude, the roughness, that kind of thing, the frequency. And what I want to do is I want to put this into velocity. So if I put this here and then visualize velocity with this, let's see, let's multiply it. You can't really see it. You can see these little blue lines kind of coming up. Let's multiply constant is what I want. So that way, just for the sake of visualization, if I multiply these by 10, you can now see, okay, let's try 30. Okay. So you can see this is my velocity right now. So, but I want it to be animated. So, let's do something like offset. I can animate the offset. So let's just hold Alt and click this, and then go to the end, go to something like that. Oh, right, hold on. Right click, delete channels. You can't animate stuff on the inside of here, you have to promote them. So let's on the offset here, middle click and go promote parameter, and the amplitude, middle click and promote parameter. Okay, so then what that does is it allows us, if we jump up, it put the offset and the amplitude here. For whatever reason, you're not allowed to animate parameters inside of a VOP. You have to do it when it's outside here by promoting those. So what I want to do is first take right click here and go copy parameter, and then go paste relative references, paste relative references. That way, whenever I change this one, it'll change these two, so I don't have to change all three each time. And then what I want to do is I want to put a little expression here, which is $F. What that means is it's going to change this every frame. Now that's way too fast, right? So I want to divide that by 10. Let's see what that does. That's better. And then I want to change the amplitude to something like 10. And I think, I guess I don't need this anymore. Let's just bypass that. So that should maybe go 50. There, so now we have our velocity, and we can kind of come in here. We can go to frequency. We can increase the frequency a bit to make the noise a little tighter. Something like that. Cool. Okay, so we have our velocity, right? If we middle click on this, you can see that we have an attribute called V, and up here we did not have it, so we've added V. Now what I need to do is make sure that I transfer this. So if I middle click here, you can see I have V, and if I middle click here, you can see I only have surface. I don't have an attribute called V, so it's not coming through here. So I need to transfer it back on with an attribute transfer. So put that in there, put that there, and what I want to transfer is a point attribute called V. And I think, let's see, I do need to transfer this on. Even though it doesn't look like it's coming through, if I don't have this transferred, it's not going to work. So I have to come back here, and then when I hit play, if I make sure I disable the gravity so that there's no other forces, you can see my velocity is pushing it outwards. So it's working as expected. So you do need to transfer it on. I was right initially. Cool. Okay, so we have that. And we can maybe under the properties here decrease the particle separation to like 0.05 so we can see a little more. One thing that also helps is to click on this and go from displaying your particles as points to pixels. It makes things run quite a bit faster in the viewport. So that's cool, that's working. Let's turn on gravity. So it's shooting out and then falling down. Great. Now I want this to kind of spin and rotate and do a bunch of stuff. So let's put on up here, let's put down a pop force, and let's give it some serious force, like an amplitude of 20, a swirl size of 50, and a pulse length of 4. So these are just numbers that I had tried out before, but it's something you can play around with. So it's moving around, splashing wildly. Cool. Okay, and I also want this to kind of rotate around like it's inside of like a washing machine or something. So let's put down a pop axis force. And what that does is does exactly what I just said. It rotates this whole thing around an axis. So let's make this bigger. Let's make the radius like 3.66, height 3.61, I don't know, something like that. And the axis it's rotating around right now is going to be Y. We have a 1 and Y, so it's going to spin it around the center here. I don't want that. I want it to spin around Z. So this white bar is what it's going to spin around. And you can see that if I disable the pop force and I disable the gravity, you should be able to see that this will spin. See how it's spinning around this? I want that, but I want it to spin quite a bit faster, I believe. So Let's do speed 1, maybe not. Maybe just leave it like that. Just have it spin. Let's turn on the pop axis force and the gravity. Oops. See what that looks like. Just give it a sec. Yeah, that's basically what I want. So I'm probably going to give it a chance to kind of fill up a little bit and then start the animation somewhere around frame 72 where there's already a bunch of water in there. The last thing I want to do, I don't want this to be continuing, I don't want this to continuously emit and fill up completely. So I may want to have this stop emitting after a certain frame. So right now the activation is set to 1, which means it's always going to be emitting. But if I go $F is less than 12, that means it's only going to be a 1 if this statement is true. Meaning, as long as the frame number is less than 12, emit. If it's higher than 12, stop emitting. So let's try that. So right after frame 12, the center part should disappear, and then we just have water in there that is now swirling around. That's basically it. So what I did was I come over here and I change this particle separation to something like 0.03 so that we get a more high-res simulation. And then just kind of let that play. We can cache that out and put a surface on it. So all we have to do is, if you wanted even higher res, you can go 0.01 or whatever you want. But we come out and we go to the particle fluid, and this kind of has everything already set up for us. All I have to do is save it here. So let's hit save the disk. Well, I'll do that later, but for now, let's just kind of go ahead a few frames to something like this. So you'll save it here. So all you have to do is highlight it, hit save the disk for however many frames you want. And then once it's saved, you can go over to this particle fluid surface node, and this is where you're actually going to shape the mesh that gives it the watery shape. I think I just left everything at default. I don't think I changed anything. And then once you have that the way you like it, you just cache it out again. So let me just run you through how to do that here. So first I'll compress the cache, hit save the disk. Okay, so I cached out like 120 frames. I didn't do the full 240, but just for the sake of this demonstration, but I probably would do the full 240 for the real thing. So now I have this particle fluid simulation, or particle fluid surface. I'm just leaving everything at default, and then I just come here and let's delete channels, let's cache 120 frames and just hit save the disk. Okay, so I've got my surface cache here. I only cached out 120 frames, but again, I think I cached out like 240 before. That way I give myself a little bit of time for this to play and kind of start it at, maybe frame 72 or something like that. So the next thing I want to do is I need to turn this into an alembic so that I can use it in Cinema 4D. So let's just take this and put down a ROP alembic output. And we're going to name this water. Okay, and what I want to do is render frame range, make sure that I've set it to the frame range that I want to actually cache out, so 1 to 120. Let's middle click on this and see what attributes we have. So right now we have P, V, name, a bunch of stuff. We don't need these detail attributes. That's just going to make a larger file size. So let's go attribute delete. Let's clean this up a bit. And the detail attributes, we want to delete all of those. So you see before, so if I middle click here, you can see the memory each frame takes is 40 megabytes. And here it's going to take, well, okay, I guess it didn't save us much file size, but sometimes you have a ton of attributes that you don't actually need. All I really need is P and V. And if you delete a bunch of the attributes, you can save yourself a ton of file size, but that didn't seem to do much, but oh well, it's cleaner. Okay, and then I want to make sure I'm outputting this to the right place. So let's click here, and let's go D, working files, tutorials, tutorial 9. I'll make a new folder, call it Alembic, and I'll call this, you can name it whatever you want, but I like to do $os.abc. What that does, that little $os, means it's going to name it whatever you've written here, the operator string. So it's going to basically be called water.abc. But that way, if I change this to something else, it'll, just automatically update there. That's pretty much all I need. And let's hit save the disk, and then I will jump back over to Cinema 4D here. As soon as it's done, it's going really quick, which is nice. Okay, so we're back in Cinema 4D. Let's just, why is this not working? Okay, so we're back in Cinema 4D. Let's bring in our Alembic. So if I hit Control-Shift-O, that allows me to open files and bring them in without bringing it into a new file. So it's huge. So what I want to do is I want to click this here and go to Object, hit T on the keyboard, and let's scale it down until it matches the size of our cube. And let's put this, let's center it with our cube. Let's put it under there, and then I hit this reset transform that I have up there and just scale it so that way it's exactly at the center of it. There, okay. So now I can delete this cube and I have this. So let's see what that looks like. So there we go. We've got our water. It's working as expected. If I jump into my camera, that's pretty much it. And all I did was I don't want this part where it's filling up. So I want to kind of start it at maybe frame 33. So the offset, let's go, oops, minus 33. So that way it starts at frame 33. There's already water there. And that's pretty much it. And then for the water shader, I didn't do anything special. I just made a new material, throw it on my particle fluid. And then I think I just used I don't like this standard material thing. Let's go redshift material. I mean, the standard material is fine. It just doesn't have these presets like the old one used to. So let's delete this. I just find it easier to just go here and go to water, and boom, now you have a water material. So let's save this, turn on my matrix, turn on my outer wall, and let's just see what that looks like. I don't think I textured my tree branches yet, but that's okay. But yeah, that's pretty much all I did. So that gives you the basis of the effect. The last thing I did, you may notice that in my final render that the plants are changing colors. I didn't do that in 3D. All I did was I rendered out a matte for all these plants, and then in After Effects I just used the hue saturation dial and just kind of moved the dial around in a circle to change the color and had it only affect the plants there. It's pretty simple, but that is the basics of this tutorial. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Hopefully it makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments. I can answer them. Otherwise, enjoy.